I looked at him sit back in his chair and you could see the gears going in his head. And I'm like, you know what? This is not the time to push just to get one deal done.
You are listening to The Deal Breakdown with Derek Chevy, where we spotlight the best deals out there in B2B sales, from the open all the way to the close. Welcome to B2B Deal Breakdown Podcast, where we give you the play-by-play and some of the best deals out there. I'm Derek Chevy, and I'm excited to be meeting with Steve Dei Rossi. He's a business development manager in the contract manufacturing industry. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, Derek. Good to be on, man. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on here. I know you've been doing this for a while and have had crazy success, so our listeners have got a great show ahead of them. Let's start off, though. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about your background, how you got to where you're at today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in business development sales for going on 12 years now. Started off at a company in the Bay Area in contract manufacturing, one of the top 5 in that industry. Worked there for 4 years. Found myself moving out to Austin, Texas, where I am now. Worked for Xerox for a while, selling copiers. Then I got back into manufacturing, and I've been doing that now for, been with my current company for 4.5 years. Pure biz development, hunting mentality, going out and getting new business.
Awesome. I love it. So this is going to be a good story then for sure. What does your company do that you work for now? Like, what do you sell? What challenges does your offering solve? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So the company I'm with now, we are the second largest contract manufacturer, or also known as EMS, which is Electronic Manufacturing Services, company in the world. And what we do is we have none of our own products, but we have facilities, factories, supply chain engineering, and processes that make people's products come to life. So anything, from Fitbit, Redbox, Xbox, anything with electronic, with printed circuit boards in it, we have the capabilities to turn that into full box builds and ship it out with their company's logo on it. Nice. So I like to say we're the biggest company that nobody knows about.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. So this particular deal you're going to share with us today, why did you choose this one?
I learned a lot from this deal. It was a fairly large deal in my experience. And there was just a lot of stuff that happened and different changes that I thought, other people might relate to and share the success that the deal actually got done. But other people could, potentially learn from how to transition in different ways throughout the process of a deal.
Awesome. I'm excited about it. So what size deal are we talking about here? How does it relate to, I guess, your budget?
So from a yearly budget, it was about 60% of my yearly budget.
60%.
60, yes.
Wow. That's huge. So
it was a big one.
So that's over half of your budget in one deal. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it didn't start off like that, but we got it there.
All right. Don't give it away yet. Sounds good though. So how did you first find this deal? How'd you find this company?
What's funny is this company's been in business for a while. And they're actually in my back door here in Texas. And I had been trying to get in there for over a year. Just not being able to have conversations with anybody, who kept getting the door shut. On LinkedIn, they announced that they hired a new COO, who quickly transitioned to CEO. And funny enough, he was the first one to respond when I reached out to him when they announced that. And he said, "Steve, come in, let's have a conversation." And, we ended up having a great conversation, building that relationship. And
well, let's pause. Hold on. Pause. So what'd you say to him? Like, what'd you say? Just congratulations on the promotion, or like, what did you say? Because you said he was the first person to say, "Come on in." What did you say to get that reaction?
It was actually pretty short and sweet. It was, like you said, I said, "Hey, congrats on the promotion. Congrats on, getting hired on there. I think we have some things in common that we could work with. Do you mind, having 15 minutes of a conversation?" And he replied within 5 minutes. And I was surprised, to be honest with you. Right. I mean, I thought, he's probably been told by everybody in that company that, there's a guy here, Steve, trying to get in here, and, for whatever reason, we don't want to talk to him, but he was open to it.
And he must have seen that, that you worked for the company that you were at, and had some sort of connection, recognizing that, and said, okay, yeah, I'll let this random person that I've never talked to before in my life come in and see me. So you said, I'm open to it. Let's, and did he give you some times, or did you then have to continue the conversation and say, how about this time or this time, which time works best for you?
He did give me some times. He said next week, and he gave me a couple of days, and I said, Wednesday at 2:00 works for me. I'll come down and we'll sit down and have a, first open conversation.
Awesome. That's awesome. I mean, you don't hear about too many of the wins like that. I guess you don't hear enough about it. From LinkedIn, when people have the title changes and there's that relevant touch where you say, hey, congrats. And you say, maybe it's perfect time for us to talk about this. And yeah, that's great. So you set up this first appointment. Tell me about how that went. How'd you find opportunity in that meeting? What challenges was he facing? What was the company facing? How'd you know you could help?
Yeah. And it was almost a perfect storm, right? So I went in there, in my mind, thinking of what I wanted to talk about with him, right? Where I thought my company could best help his company. I didn't know the fact that they were growing, 3x a year. And he just said, look, here's the deal, Steve. We can no longer keep up with demand the way we're structured. A company like yours is exactly what we need. I know the company that you represent, heard good things about it. If we can get to an agreement on, can you guys actually do this to a certain extent? It's complex technology. There's not a lot of people that can do it. So, tell me what you can do for me. And, if we can get to a deal, we can get to a deal. And that, it sounded like it would be quick. I'm like walking out of that meeting like, oh, this is going to be the easiest one I've ever had in this industry. That was not the case, but that's how it got started. So it was, him giving me the kind of the keys to the castle, saying, this is what we need from you. Can you do it? What can you do it at a price point? And, quality is very important to us. We're growing. This is going to be, a very important partnership for us.
Great.
So we just had, well, the next step was to actually look at their technology and see if it's something that my company could do. Right. So we say we can do everything, right? I think a lot of salespeople say that, and then they try to figure it out internally, but it ended up being something that we could do, and something that my company kind of had, from an executive level, had a eye out for. Right. And these guys, I mean, he wasn't lying when he said they were growing. So their demand was heavy, and it was kind of right in our wheelhouse of, this is going to be great business for us. How do we figure out a way to be their best partner, so somebody else who can do that same stuff doesn't jump in? And I don't know if he's having conversations with my competition. Right now I feel like it's just me, but you never know.
Right. So what is that process like? Just help me out to understand how your company looked into their process. Like what did that entail?
Yeah. So, it typically with product companies, they have what's called a bill of material, or in our industry, it's a BOM, right? So it lists all the components that go into their product. Right. And the company I represent, we have very good relationships with a lot of the component people. So typically we have a better buying power than our customers would. Right. And that's why they come to us from a supply chain standpoint. We also look at, special processes that are going into running this thing down an SMT line. Is it something that's going to be messy? Is it something that is kind of one-off? Because it's not cheap to set up and we're not the cheapest EMS company out there. So is this going to be a high runner, right? Exactly the deal size we're looking for. And then getting to, actual shipment out the door, right? Are we doing packaging for them as well? Just kind of soup to nuts of, this is exactly what we're going to do for you. And then coming up with a quote, right? So we're going to purchase the material for you. We're going to build your product. We're going to ship it out the door. And how we do our quotes is labor time on the factory floor and then material price. Combine those and you have a unit price that this is what it's going to cost you to work with us.
Got it. So let's slow down here. So how long was the process for you guys just to determine, look through the bill of materials and look through the special processes and things like that they did? You leave this meeting with this COO, and then did you schedule the next check-in with them at that moment?
Exactly. So, I said, look, send us your data package. Give us a couple of weeks to review it. I have to get my engineering team involved. I have to get the factory where we're going to build it involved. Give us a couple of weeks to digest this stuff. In the meantime, if we have questions, obviously this line has to be open for communication. If there's somebody at your company that I need to speak to, can we have those open dialogues? And then, let's schedule another one in 2 weeks to sit down and we can kind of show you what we're thinking. You tell us yes or no. And then we can start the quoting process, right? So really the quoting doesn't start until all the technicalities are done.
Right. And so that's how it's just part of your process to leave the meeting with that scope of work basically filled out. And was that
exactly.
Was that in a sheet that you this is the process sheet that you brought with you to say, here's how we keep this thing in order? Or was this just something you told them verbally and scheduled the date right there on the spot?
It was verbal because every meeting is different in this industry, right? Sometimes you leave with, you just don't know. And sometimes it's like, hey guys, we need this tomorrow. What can you do? So I just kind of laid it out. Here's how we liked, and we've had the most success working with new customers such as yourself. Let me kind of give you a game plan of timing, right? And, let's definitely get something concrete on the schedule to come in and have another conversation.
That's great. I think that's, for the B2B salespeople listening in, when you're talking to executives in general, and they have a goal, they have a mission that like you found out from this person, they want to know when things are going to take. What's the timeline? What's the next step? Like when are you going to come back? What's going to happen from now until then? And, how do we keep pushing this thing forward just to at least explore it? And I think you outlining it is a big thing I just wanted to highlight. So you met with them again, and was it at that meeting that you confirmed your findings, you validated your findings, or was that a meeting where you immediately presented the proposal?
No, that was not a proposal meeting. So that was hey, we can do this for you. Let's get volumes from you. Let's see, when do you need these, right? Your timeline. We got to look at material lead times and everything in between, right? Is this the only product? And that's when I brought up, you're giving me one product line of your portfolio. Why not give me all of them? And he kind of sat back in his chair and said, that's not a bad decision. Let's see what we can do. And that's when the relationship with this guy really transformed from I don't know you from the next guy to, all right, I think this is going to be a good partnership, because he's thinking I'm thinking 3 steps down the road. And, this COO is probably thinking 6 steps down the road, right? His whole goal is strategy. And I'm, kind of mirroring that, like, all right, man, I don't want to be a one-time, deal for you. I want this to be a long relationship. You guys clearly are kicking butt. Clearly you have great technology. Let's see what else we can do for you to really, build our relationship even more. And that's when, the dinner started coming and the golf playing started, developing, and took him out to it.
Hold on. You're skipping ahead. That's a lot. There's a lot of good stuff there. So this meeting, he says, yeah, let's look at this. And then what did that entail from there? Like, what did you're basically extending your sales cycle too, right? So you're saying
exactly. So
you got something. And how did you know at that moment from a sales standpoint to say, I could just go for this deal right now and hit your budget or do however your budget, however much this represented for your budget. But then you felt something from a standpoint to say, you know what, I should hold back. I should slow down and do more. Tell me about that.
I think it was just kind of something clicked, right? When I asked that question, and I looked at him sit back in his chair, and you could see the gears going in his head. And I'm like, you know what, this is not the time to push just to get one deal done. This is the time that this guy obviously understands the value that we bring to the table. There's more business on the table now. And how do we transform from, hey, we can do, I'll get you a number on this product, to let's, give me the whole data package for all your product lines. And then let's start this process over again. Yeah, it's going to take a little longer because there's a lot of stuff to digest, but the number at the end of the deal is going to be 4x what it was on one product line.
Right. Did you walk into that meeting preparing to ask that question?
I didn't. Actually, I just because the relationship was so fresh that I didn't know where his mind was, right? I know that he mentioned they were growing and he needs help, but I didn't know if he was just needed help on this one product line or if it was whole portfolio. So it just kind of question that came natural. And I said, what else do you have? Right. And that's when the deal really transformed.
And I'm sure that's a lesson too for you to learn, in the future to make sure you're asking those questions too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then from there, what was next then? Was it just the same sort of process you did in the first place, those 2 weeks, but just over their entire portfolio?
Yes and no. So they gave us their whole portfolio. We started that process again. In the meantime, typically what we like to do is get potential customers into one of our factories where it's, and we're, a global company. So at this point, we were thinking that China would be, one of our factories in China would be the best spot. So I told him, I said, look, we need to get you and whoever it is, if it's your CTO, if it's your VP of engineering, if it's your manufacturing manager, we need to get you guys in one of our factories. And let's do that in parallel to going through your data package, right? So if you guys have the time and you tell me when, and I'll make it work, let's get over to China, do factory tours, see, so that we can produce this stuff, right? I mean, I can tell you we can, but when you see something similar going down the line, that's where you really understand, all right, these guys are world-class.
Yeah. Is that part of your normal process to bring people in for a demo?
Yeah. I mean, very rarely do you get somebody who doesn't care whether this is their baby, right? This is their product and they're handing you the keys and they're trusting you. So they want to make sure that you're not some Joe Schmo, right? And your factories are certified. You have, labor that understands it. You have the right equipment. So it's a big deal to get deals done.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So then, so they said yes, obviously, to this demo. And,
Mm-hmm.
And throughout this time, when did you start saying, let me to continue further in this relationship, I want to do other things with them, dinners and golfing, things like that. When did that kick in?
Yeah, that was almost automatic, right? And that's kind of my style. And building that relationship was, let's get this guy out to dinner. Let's have a couple of beers, discuss really what he wants to accomplish outside of the office, get to know him. And, so we went to multiple dinners, and then he talked about his interest in golf, and I'm a huge golfer. So, obviously those go hand in hand. And I said, hey, let's go out and play on a Friday if we can both get away. And we don't have to talk about business when we're doing that, right? Let's go out and just play golf.
Yeah.
And at that point he had transitioned from COO to CEO. So he was pulling all the strings now.
Nice.
And, that was a really cool experience. And I've worked with a lot of different C-level people, but getting this kind of relationship and this kind of FaceTime with the guy who is the absolute decision maker at this company was huge.
Yeah. And you built a relationship that's beyond the work too, with a great contact. Okay, great. So then after you did this demo, was there anything significant that occurred that, allowed you to build value, or any curveballs or anything like that along the way?
Yeah. Funny you mentioned curveball. So
yeah,
maybe it was a Barry Zito curveball. I mean, this thing was incredible, right? He ends up hiring a VP of operations to come in and kind of manage this, right? He obviously is going to sign the check, but he needs somebody on a daily kind of who's geared towards operations and geared towards manufacturing. He hires this guy, plugs us into him, myself and my team at where I'm at, to build a relationship from scratch, right? And this guy is a very sharp guy, but he's a numbers guy, and he's not so keen on the open relationship that we had, right? Because for a time it was, we'll show you our cost, you show you if you can beat it or match it, right? And kind of open book, which is rare. This guy comes in and shuts that down and says, no, 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 we're going to actually go out there and quote some other people, right? Some of your competitors. And I'm, having a heart attack, right? Because I'm thinking, my mistake, I'm thinking I'm the only one. I'm thinking the deal's already closed, right?
Right.
And it wasn't. Start the process over. What is it that this new VP of operations is really trying to accomplish, right? What's going to make him shine? How can I and my company be that partner that makes him look like he made the right decision, right? That, his job is justified. He ended up, so kind of to go backtrack a little bit, I spent a week in China with these guys, fly back to Texas for a week. And I get an email on a Wednesday from them saying, hey, we have 2 other guys that want to go see your factory. Can you get us over there? So I'm still jet lagged, right? Sure. Absolutely. A week later, I'm back in China doing the whole dog and pony show, showing them the site. And he's a nitpicker. So he's looking at everything, right? And complete opposite of the first trip. The first trip was, you guys are great. Obviously you can do it. We can't wait to do business with you. And then now it's, but something's wrong here.
But that happened, and you guys get back, and he hires this VP after you got back then.
Correct.
And then now you got this VP, and he wants to be a part of it too. And then, okay, got it. Okay. So now, tell me about how it went with him.
Yeah. At first it wasn't great. I was a little upset, right? Because I'm thinking, yeah, this is great. This deal's awesome. I'm going to brag about it to everybody. And now it's, this guy's not so sure about Steve. He's not so sure about what my company can do.
Yeah.
And can we do it at the price point he wants? Because as we're working through quotes, we're sharing numbers with him, and we're doing this in parallel to all these trips. And, for a while it was, that looks great. And then it totally transitioned, and it was, you guys are way too high. You got to figure out if you can get lower. I'm like, he's one of these guys. How do I get lower in an already low margin business? So it really became more strategic, and it became more of a traditional sale, right? Where you're not best friends with the person you're working with. A little bit more contentious. And I just had to transition in my head. Okay, I need to be able to really get this guy to trust me as a CEO trusts me.
Yeah.
But keep him in the loop, even though I know he's not the ultimate decision maker. Keep him in the loop. So when the deal's done, he feels good. He feels justified. He's the rock star in his company. How do I make this guy the rock star in his company? So right. Transition in my head, right, to do that. And I didn't know if we could, right? With the price point this guy's coming at me with, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, we're going to have to get really, really thin here. But if there's a way, if there's a will, there's a way. And it took a long time, right? It wasn't easy. And this guy's a stickler. He wanted things on time, and he wanted to make sure that, everything's that I say that's going to get done is getting done. So it was a difficult, it went from a really easy deal to a really difficult deal.
Nice.
And I'll stop there.
Yeah, good. So tell me about, so you had presented proposals to him, and he was obviously saying, let's do better. Or had you already presented the official numbers? Because you said you're doing it back and forth as you were traveling. Like, the official proposal had been presented already and was going through multiple revisions, it sounds like.
Yeah. So we had given a first round number of, what we thought we could do it for. They were happy with it. And then this guy comes in and he wasn't happy with it.
Got it.
Right. So we had to adjust basically everything. We had to adjust everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what that feels like. So tell me about how you separated yourself from the competition with him.
The thing is, in manufacturing, is most of the big, I call them top 5 in contract manufacturing, can all have the same capabilities, technologies, right? They're all great companies. What it really comes down to is some of us can do certain technologies a little bit better, or we have more experience in it. And the customer's product was something that's really specific to their industry, right? And we had one of their competitors we were already building for them. So there's a process in the step that our competition, one, couldn't do and wouldn't want to do. It's a messy, really kind of smelly chemical, without giving away,
Yeah.
too much stuff. But we had already had that in-house and we had perfected our process. So I knew that because working with other companies in this guy's industry, they were really impressed with our capabilities in that. So I had that in my back pocket, and I knew this guy, he's going to say that our competition can do it. But I know they can't. Right. So, it was kind of a two-way street. It became, we're going to call each other on each other's BS. Right. And, obviously he's a procurement guy, right? That's his background. So he wanted to put that screw in my side and try to get me as low as he possibly could. But there's a point where I know I'm the only one that can do this.
Right.
Without just coming out and being like, dude, you're lying. Come on. I know I'm the only one that can do this.
So tell me about what was it that finally won the deal? Like, when did they finally say, okay, we're done with this back and forth. We're going with you. Let's move forward. Let's just go back to the first time you presented a proposal with the CEO. First time proposal till the final proposal, you said, and the VP, I guess, is saying, yes, we're in. How long a time was that?
It was over 8 months.
For that
Of back and forth, right? And so for a timing perspective, right, from the first meeting we had with them for a discovery meeting to getting the proposal, in the initial proposal to them, was a 3 months process, right? And that's with 2 trips to China. And then it was back and forth with, we don't know if we want you to have all of our product lines. You might just start you off with 2, and then you can grow into the other ones. And there was a lot of transition internally at the customer that we had to sit back and wait for.
Yeah.
Right. So it was almost like, here's our number. Well, we don't know if 100% if that's what we want to do. Okay, well, let me know what you want to do so I can adjust. And there was a lot of back and forth with that.
Yeah. So then finally they said yes. And then was there any catalyst that got them to do that?
Yeah. So the biggest one was the way we could do that specific process. And another thing is we got to his number that he felt comfortable, giving us the business, and he awarded us his whole portfolio. Right. And it was, I didn't think we could get there. We had to do a lot of adjusting. There was a lot of engineering involved. There was a lot of supply chain sourcing and, working with different OEMs and, try to do preferred pricing. So it was probably the most complex deal I've ever been a part of. It was not the biggest deal I've ever been a part of, but it was the most complex with so many different moving parts and a lot of different personalities. And I was, playing the quarterback role like most of salespeople do. It was honestly the most satisfying one at the end when the deal was actually done.
Yeah.
It was like, that's awesome. That was a lot of work, to get it done.
It sounds like tremendous work, but in it being 60% of your full year budget. So and that wasn't the only deal you're obviously working on through the whole year. So that's awesome. Looking back, what would you say are 3 things that overall won the deal for you?
I would say being able to pivot from, thinking that we're the only one, right? And I got the CEO, as a friend now. So we can, we might be able to get some more margin in this business and then getting the wrench thrown in, but being able to pivot and transition that mindset to, all right, this isn't going to be as easy as I thought, right? And taking a step back, taking the ego away from it and basically starting the process over with them, and then getting him, the VP, to be on the same page. So it was a lot of learning, and it was a lot of how do I need to adjust as the sales lead here to make this successful and make them successful, right? So it was actually it was a big learning curve for me, right? Of not just being like, all right, I'm Steve. I know I can close this deal. We have the capabilities. I don't really care if this guy, is going to drive me to the ground with margins. But, really focusing on that, right? So turning my mindset around and being like, there's got to be a way to make this work. How can I do it with all ego set aside?
Yeah. Difficult for B2B salespeople in general. When you go from one decision maker, you work so hard on, doing a good job for them. You get the new decision maker, the new influencer coming in that you have to start over. I mean, it's not exactly uncommon. And that's stuff that does happen. But in this sort of deal, all the work that you put into the dinners, the golfing and all of that, I mean, you feel pretty confident, and you're working with the CEO at this point.
Right.
To have that, to go to the way you did, I can see how it definitely, your mindset, you shifting that probably made all the difference. Now, what about there's all the B2B salespeople that are listening? I mean, there's so much wisdom that you shared in this deal, but what would you say, like, what advice would you give to a B2B salesperson out there, anyone listening, to help them bring more value to their deals, and even to take a deal from like you did and ask that extra question to grow it by, 4 or 5 times in size and stick with it all the way to the end? Like what final words of wisdom would you have?
Honestly, I think it's never be surprised by things that can happen. Never think the deal's done until it's actually done. And, always just be curious and ask. Just don't be afraid to ask questions, right? So if you're in initial meetings or you're in discovery meetings and they give you one thing, right, and you're like, okay, that's a good deal, but the size of the company, what they do, you've done your research, there's probably more. Why not ask? What's the worst that can happen, right? They're already giving you a shot at one product line. You ask for another one and they give it to you, or they don't, what's the harm? No harm, no foul. And like I learned in this one, just because you have the relationship with the highest person at that company doesn't mean that they're going to have the time for you all the time, right? So yeah, they might have, you got in the door, you got the relationship, but at the end of the day, these guys got us probably a lot busier than you are. So don't be surprised if they introduce you to somebody in the organization that you have to work with daily that's got other agendas, right? And they might have relationships with people of your competitors, and their thinking, their strategy thinking is different than the guy who's running the company or the guy or girl who's running the company. So just, never be surprised, never think the deal's done before it's done. And then being able to pivot, right, and change mindsets, put on different hats, and keeping your ego set aside. I think a lot of salespeople, right, we're typically type A individuals, but at the end of the day, we're trying to make money and we're trying to close deals, and sometimes people don't want to close deals with cocky people. So don't go in there thinking that everything you do is perfect, right? And we already have the stigma of being salespeople, and I think leaving your ego at the door makes your job 100% easier.
Yeah, man, that's such great advice, Steve. Really appreciate it. If any B2B salesperson or even companies wanted to reach out to you further, what's the best way?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so I would say LinkedIn is the best way. It's Steve, Steve. My last name is Dei Rossi, DeiRossi. Shoot me an email or message, connection request, and I'm definitely open to have conversations and learn from each other.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for being on, Steve. I know the salespeople are going to get so much out of this.
No, I appreciate you having me, Derek. It was a great conversation.
Well, that's it for today's session, everybody. Thank you so much, Steve, for helping all of our fellow B2B salespeople out there improve their sales skills. For our listeners, if you'd like to get today's highlights, be sure to check out our summary on modernsalestraining.com. Have a great sales week, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Hey, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, then you have to come check out our free Top Performer Academy course. Inside it, I'll give you 12 sales tips that only the best salespeople do on a daily basis. Tips ranging from cold calling to running effective appointments, handling objections, and creating urgency in your deals. You can get it 100% free at www.modernSalesTraining.com/free. That's modernSalesTraining.com/free. These 12 tips could be the difference between you having a good month or an incredible one. I hope to see you there.